The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericaempowerment.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Welcome to Living Well with Ann Beal. Our show is a health show, a lifestyle show, and an empowerment show rolled into one. Get ready to hear some stories of success, healthy living tips, and suggestions to get motivated and live your best life. Now, here is your host, Ann Beal.
Welcome to Living Well. This is Ann Beal, and I am here with Dr. Sharon Price, a nutritionist, and a lady who actually changed my daughter's life. I wanted to have you talk to her today. She's a skilled clinician. My daughter was diagnosed in fourth grade with Crohn's disease. And after working with the doctors for a couple of years, I ended up bringing her to Dr. Sharon Price. And as of today, my daughter's 22 and she no longer has Crohn's. And so I wanted to have you guys hear from her today. Sharon, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here, Ann. I'm just always excited to be able to share about health with anybody who'll listen, basically.
Well, tell us a little bit about your background, because I know you have your doctorate, but tell us about your health background.
Well, that's a really long story. Let me see if I can shorten it up a little bit. I came from a corporate background, and anybody in corporate America knows that that's a very stressful situation. And I traveled a lot and became very, very sick. But having my blood work done, which is always the first thing you do with a physician, my blood work was perfect. And no high cholesterol, no high blood pressure, no high anything. Matter of fact, the physician said, "You're perfect. Here's some Prozac." Well, obviously I knew that I didn't have a deficiency of Prozac. I knew that I was depressed, but anyway, so I just went on a mission to figure out what was wrong with me and how I could help my body heal itself. And so I found actually a physician who happened to be a cardiologist who felt the importance of magnesium. And I was so deficient in magnesium, among other things, that I had to have magnesium injections. So anyway, it was just a process for me. And God put me on this path years ago, and I didn't realize it. And so, when he tries to get your attention, I think sometimes when you become very sick. And I was just on a mission, and I became very passionate about it and realized that my body needed specific nutrients, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, protein. I was so deficient in protein.
How old were you when that happened to you?
I was around, became a Christian when I was 39, so it all happened about the same time. So I was about 39, 40 years old at that time.
Because you're so healthy now. And I actually met Dr. Price when she came to our grad school and talked with us about nutrition and about autoimmune disease.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I got the idea to take my daughter to go see her. And so for you, Dr. Price, I know now you're a skilled clinician and a passionate research scientist. So through your own illness, you got into learning all about nutrition and health and how it's affected?
Right. Well, that was my own testimony, I should say. And so I realized that there were so many people who were so sick around me and like me didn't know why. So I realized that I wanted to take a path of study, and so I did. I started out with my master's. I had already had my BS and started out to, now, first of all, I started out to become a certified nutritionist, and then pursued my master's in nutrition and then my PhD in nutrition and natural health science. So, with a clinical background, I've been visiting with patients for about 20 years now. So, I see a lot of, I have a clinical background, my own personal background, clinical background, and then educational background. And, I still see individuals who come to see me who have a diagnosis that I've never heard of. So, it's that research passion in me that wants to look up that particular diagnosis. And a lot of times it's just putting a label on a series of symptoms when that is, in my opinion, so wrong. Right, because what I see in those cases is people who are so deficient in so many nutrients that their organs, their systems can't function properly.
Well, I think that most people don't realize that the medical field, especially MDs, they don't really study what causes chronic problems and how to heal chronic problems. Right. They actually are taught instead how to manage the symptoms so you actually feel better during the time that it's a disease and you're getting worse, because they categorize it as a disease. Most diseases are caused by nutritional deficiencies, but MDs aren't taught that. I know DOs are taught some of that. Chiropractors are taught some of that. Naturopathic doctors, which I know we don't have in Texas, are taught a lot of that. And I think people don't realize that there's different areas of medicine, different areas of clinical training in the medical field that all piece together to make a whole. And all we have here right now, at least in Texas, is mostly MDs. So we miss out on a lot of the information about nutrition and deficiencies and what causes diseases and how to cure them, heal them. In fact, nutritionists and even, anyone who's not an MD is not allowed to use the word cure or heal. You're only allowed to say all the symptoms go away. Though you can say the same thing, give them the same medicine to animals, and you can say heal and cure. You just can't say that in our field, right? And so, I think that to know that to come to a nutritionist or to learn about even how nutrition affects the body, like if you don't get calcium and you get deficient in calcium, how many diseases can happen?
Exactly.
And that's where you come in, is you can identify for people what the deficiencies are that are causing the diseases.
And it's not always a deficiency. For me, I didn't know where my illness started, whether it was psychological, whether it was gut issues. And so, it's like, where does it all start? With calcium deficiencies or magnesium deficiencies or some of the key nutrients. If we're deficient in those nutrients, we can accumulate toxic waste in the body, whether it's heavy metals, whether it's bacteria, virus, even cancer, the growth of cancer cells. So it's those nutritional deficiencies that set us up for toxic buildup in the body. If you're not having proper elimination, whether it's from the urinary tract, whether it's from the colon, whether it's from the skin, the respiratory system, the lymphatic system, which is neglected almost always, even in a lot of nutritional programs. So the health of the lymph system is extremely important. So identifying those nutritional deficiencies, which we can do, whether it's in blood work, whether it's in urinalysis, whether it's in hair analysis, saliva, it's important to identify those nutritional deficiencies.
And with Katie, my daughter, when I brought her in, she had so many deficiencies, but she also had copper toxicity that you found out, which was causing a lot of I think it was what was causing a lot of the mood behaviors that came from that. But you had her on we got her in 4th grade she was throwing up every day at the time. And
that was quite a while ago.
Yeah, and had diarrhea every day for 2 years, And so you got her on a pretty strict diet that I could do because she was my child. Right. Like if I tried to do that today when she's 22, I would not be successful. Right. And her life started changing and her health started changing. And it was truly amazing. Quickly, within 3 weeks, she stopped throwing up. And the doctors had been working for 2 years. Yeah. And so for her, when she stopped throwing up and the diarrhea stopped, all her energy started coming back. Right. Her mood started changing. She started sleeping. And so for her, and she's even said sometimes, I should go back on that diet when I was in 4th grade because I felt so good. Right. And she had gained quite a bit of weight before that, and she lost a lot of that weight. That's why she was saying she should do that. And just really became a healthy, whole person. It is amazing what nutrition can do.
Well, and I always tell my clients that your first line therapy is always dietary changes. Always, always. As a matter of fact, I will tell people that I won't work with them unless they change their diet because they will not be able to reach the goals that we both set out in the beginning. We just won't be able to reach them. Now, you cannot get all of the minerals, enzymes, and vitamins and nutrients that you need from food just because of the way food is grown nowadays. Food is, packaged and processed and so on and so forth. You just can't do it, whether it's organic or not. So in addition to looking at dietary changes, we need to look at supplemental nutrition, what I call micronutrition, to supplement what is recommended in the diet. So in order to meet the goals that client has, whether they have Crohn's disease, whether they have anxiety, whether they have depression,
fibromyalgia,
arthritis, whatever it happens, it does not matter what the diagnosis is.
So you're not saying, because I know a lot of people just want to take supplements, just pop pills basically, right, or powder or whatever. And so what I hear you saying, and I've noticed on your education that you teach, a lot of it is supplementing, but trying to, for a short amount of time, to get your diet changed, to get you healthier. And then you're still supplementing because you cannot get enough nutrients in your food. Right. But you want to be able to supplement just the basics of what they need. But the supplementing as much as they do in the beginning until their diet changes is to help get them well, right?
Well, programs change. Normally when an individual comes to see me, it's not 1 or 2 visits. It's typically at least a 6-month protocol. Now, I don't see individuals every week. Generally, it's every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, something like that, unless it's, some other particular, like cancer. I'll usually see clients every 1 to 2 weeks, something like that. So making sure that, the protocols are followed and, dietary changes are made and things of that sort. So it's always important to address the gut because that is the way God made the body. That's where nutrition is pulled from the foods that we eat. So I will start them on a nutritional protocol, which includes dietary intake and then supplements. So as we progress through that 6-month period, those supplements will change.
Now you're in Southlake, Texas, yes, and her clinic is called Nutritional Directions, right?
Right.
In Southlake, here in this area, what are some of the main illnesses that you see in people who come to you?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and it seems to change. I don't know why that is, but I see a lot of depression and a lot of anxiety. I see a lot of muscle and joint pain. I saw a woman who was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which I see a lot of.
Right.
And she, within 2 weeks, she came back to me for her follow-up visit, and she had no pain in her body whatsoever.
So you put her on a lot of calcium? Or
No. And it's very unusual for somebody to have a improvement that quickly, 2 weeks. But it happens.
Yeah.
So, but people generally will have a gradual improvement. And I was telling a client of mine this morning, it's like, when you're 50, 60, she happened to be 65 years old, and she was seeing me for the first time. And, I said, it's like a pendulum that swings, and at whatever age you feel like you're just sick and you can't deal with it anymore, it's like you come to see me and we're getting that pendulum unstuck. So, it swings from one side to another side, and then it'll get stuck again. So we have to change that supplemental nutritional protocol in order to unstick that pendulum. So it'll swing and swing nicely. So that's why it's all about getting to the root cause. So I will almost never put a client on calcium unless it's a child.
Right.
And the reason is that they're almost, I won't say almost always magnesium deficient, but they almost always need magnesium before they ever need calcium. And it's what form of that calcium is used. I mean, that is critical.
Right. Whether it'll absorb or not absorb or...
Exactly.
It's funny because Dr. Wallach, who I read a lot about and talk to sometimes, he talks about it's not, people say you are what you eat. And he says, no, you are what you absorb.
That's right.
And so you're trying to mainly improve the person's gut so that they can absorb all the nutrients.
Right. Yeah, and that's, when I see individuals who come in here who, when they get through talking about how sick they are, I am personally overwhelmed with all of their issues and where do I start? What do I do? Always start with the gut, because in nutritional dietary intake, I mean, so critical. Even things like depression and anxiety. I had a client come in one time, we checked for gluten sensitivity, and she had the highest number I had ever seen, and very, very anxious woman. And we took all gluten out of her diet, all sugar, which I always do. And within a week, she called me and she said, I cannot believe I don't have anxiety anymore. Is that due to the diet? Well, absolutely, because there is a direct connection between the gut and the brain. And when we think of Prozac, or we think about the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, like Prozac, and anything that helps to manipulate the serotonin neurotransmitter, serotonin is produced in the gut. So
really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
So that direct brain-gut connection, if your gut is not healthy, you cannot produce neurotransmitters like you need to. So if for this particular client, taking gluten out of her diet, which was stressing the immune system to aggravate the immune system because of all the inflammation based on the gluten that she was taking.
Dr. Perlmutter came out with the book Grain Brain, and he talks a lot about gluten and how it affects the brain as well. It's fun. I had heard a lot about gluten in the gut, but or the colon. as well. But I hadn't heard how it affects the brain as well. And so you could see how it could even cause anxiety and depression and things like that.
Absolutely.
So do you suggest most people get off gluten?
I would say probably 75% of clients who come in here. There are a few that you don't exhibit symptoms to gluten sensitivity, so we don't test. They have other issues that we're dealing with. If those issues don't go away, then we test, And there are some people that will walk in here and say on their first visit, I want to be tested for food allergies. I want to be tested for, 3 or 4 different things. And my response to them is, and they have all of these gut symptoms, gas, bloating, belching, all of those gut symptoms, diarrhea or constipation. And, my response to them is don't waste your money on food allergy testing until we clean up your gut, until we stabilize your gut, until we calm down that inflammation. So,
because then you think the allergies might not be an issue then.
Well, if we do a food allergy test, we get those results back, they're going to be allergic or intolerant to, let's say, 50 different foods. If we let the system calm down and in 6 months do that test, they might come back with, let's say, 10 true food sensitivities.
Wow.
So we want to know what those true food sensitivities are. And so if we clean up the gut, which I know that sounds simple, and it's not simply taking, one thing, glutamine, and staying on that for 6 months.
Or probiotics.
Or probiotics for 6 months. It's changing those protocols up within that 6-month period because the body will get used to something for a period of time, and then we've got to shake it and wake it up again and say, hey, let's continue with this program. So
that's interesting because they say the same thing about physical workouts, that your body gets used to doing the same thing over and over and over. And so if you want better results, you need to change it up at times.
Right.
And kind of do bursts of other things to get to kind of wake up the body to burn fat better and things like that. So it sounds like it's the same thing when it comes to what you're talking about.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought up exercise, too, because that's another thing individuals come in here for, mostly women, say, I am working out like a crazy person and I can't lose weight. And so the first thing I say is we have got to check your adrenals. And probably 99% of the time, these individuals are in adrenal burnout. And they want to lose 10, 20, 30 pounds. And they will not be, I don't care how hard they work out, they're not going to be able to lose that weight until we get them out of adrenal burnout.
And so there are things you can do for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And any woman or man out there has ever had a physician put them on thyroid medication has probably told them you'll have to stay on that for the rest of your life. Well, if we don't look at the adrenals and what's going on with the adrenals, yes, you will have to stay on that for the rest of your life. But the adrenals support the thyroid supports the adrenals. So if we can wake up the adrenals and get them to produce all of the hormones that they were designed to produce, first of all, you'll start losing weight. You may be able to get off your thyroid medications. If we know somebody's in adrenal burnout, then we know how to recommend that they change their workout protocol to burn fat better, which will, when we put somebody on a dietary protocol, we don't want them to lose lean muscle mass. We want them to lose body fat. So it's important to look at all those glands and organs and systems to make sure they're working properly. The liver, the kidneys, it's so critical.
Well, and I think that most people hear about the thyroid but they don't really think about the other two glands, the adrenal gland and the pituitary gland.
Right.
And so the adrenal gland, I don't know if doctors just don't. Now, I know I've heard DOs say that they've had clients have their adrenal gland not working, but you just don't ever, I don't ever, over the last 20 years that I've been doing this, I haven't had anyone come in and say, I'm having trouble with my adrenal gland and I'm on this, synthetic adrenal medicine. Right. They do it for thyroid. And I've always thought, are they just not trained in the adrenal gland?
Right. Well, and that's hard to say. You mentioned earlier about physicians and their training, in defense of physicians, I have friends who are physicians, and, I just love them to death. And they will be the first one to tell you that they had no training in nutrition in school, unfortunately. But I think it's my clients, it's the everyday people out there who will make it necessary for physicians to investigate, therapies that I recommend to clients. I mean, it's the demand by the public that will make it so, and that's the case for most changes that occur across the United States. But I think that getting to the root cause of the problem rather than putting a drug, a pharmaceutical, or even a CoQ10 on the symptom. It's like, supplement for symptom, drug for symptom.
Right.
Let's not do that unless we need to do it very temporarily to get to the root cause.
Well, and the root cause is probably what most people really want to know. What caused this and how can I get rid of it? Not, I don't think that people realize that most of the time what they're getting instead is this is to help you feel better while it gets worse over time because we don't really know what causes it.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many doctors have said to my clients, they'll say, well, could it be my diet or could it be this? And then, no, food doesn't really matter. And I'm like, okay, now, since we were kids, our parents told us that food, what we put in our mouth, we have to have our vegetables, we have to have our fruit, we have to have our water.
Right.
And when we're in school, they teach about the food pyramid. I mean, we know since we were small that food does matter. Mm-hmm. What we put in our mouth matters.
Right.
So.
Right, it absolutely does. And, it's like Dr. Perlmutter, it's not what we eat, it's what we digest and then what we absorb and then what we eliminate. Because if we don't eliminate properly, we will get sick too. Because the body has to do something with what we don't eliminate. So what does it do? It compacts the colon. It stores those toxins in the lymph system and the muscle system. You get fibromyalgia, or you're diagnosed with fibromyalgia.
Right, diagnosed with. And a lot of people are being diagnosed with that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned sugar. You said, that is the one thing that you said, I thought you said you talk everyone out of being on that.
Absolutely.
So that one, sugar, is that the worst thing for you that people are on?
Oh, my goodness. Well, if you talk about colas,
Colas, yes.
They're sugar, so.
Right.
So I would have to say yes. And that doesn't mean that a person has to go for the rest of their life without having sugar. My favorite thing in the world when I was so sick used to be cheesecake for dessert. I mean, I have no desire for cheesecake now.
That's good.
It just, but sugar, I mean, that is one of the key things. And then people get off sugar and they say, okay, well, I'll have Splenda, which is also sucralose, I'll have, all of these other chemical sweeteners, which are horrible.
And they're worse than sugar.
Well, they can be definitely worse than sugar.
Sugar doesn't cause cancer, does it?
Sugar, well, I think the jury is out on
right, that's what I was just thinking. We don't really know.
We don't really know what causes cancer, but we know that the healthier the body is, the more the immune system and the rest of the body can defend against something like cancer.
Yes.
something like Alzheimer's, something like Parkinson's, or, those sorts of things. So,
well, and sugar is interesting, and I don't think that most people, they know in general sugar is not good for you, in large amounts, but they don't realize how much sugar's in everything now, or corn syrup.
Yes.
And so sugar is much more dangerous to the body, and if they could get off sugar, how much they would lose weight, they would feel so much better.
Right. Well, even something like, sugar, when you eat something that has sugar in it, the body can make a decision. The liver can make a decision about what to do with that sugar, whether to put it in the fat cells of the body or whether to burn it up, use it right away. If you eat something that has high fructose corn syrup, your liver doesn't have to make a decision about that at all. It goes right into the fat cells. So, your Cokes and your cereals and your things like that with high fructose corn syrup, that's why America is becoming so fat.
Okay. Well, we will stop there and take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll have you tell us some things that you can suggest for people. Want to talk about your book that you have out, and just really more about you and what you do to help people.
Okay.
And we'll break now.
Have you ever noticed that sometimes life just feels easier, especially when judgment of you or anyone else ceases to exist? What if you could function from that space all the time? What if gratitude is the key? Every time you are grateful for someone or something, a new universe opens up. What difference can you create in your life and the world from the energy, space, and consciousness of gratitude? Join us on Access Consciousness presents Beyond Saying Thank You every Tuesday at 12 noon Pacific Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel.
Want more positivity in your life? Are you ready to get healthy, happy, and energized? Join the Stella Donna Goddess Gals, Cynthia Bryan and Heather Brittany, for a power hour of stimulating, supportive conversation on Star Style. Be the Star You Are. A lineup of best-selling authors, celebrities, and experts join the effervescent mother-daughter dynamic duo in this upbeat, positive, life-changing talk radio playground. Star Style. Be the Star You Are. Wednesdays, 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. Lend us your ears. It's power time.
Experiencing loss or grief can be devastating. At some point, our soul compels us to embrace and embark on the journey to healing. But how do we begin? How do we move forward? Tune in to A Light for the Soul That Weeps with host Dayton Ann Williams. This program serves as your light, your forum, your passageway. Although healing is an inward journey, you are not alone. We can walk the path together. Join us every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. You are listening to Living Well with Ann Beal. We'd love to hear from you with comments and questions about the show. Please send us an email to ablivingwell@gmail.com. That's ablivingwell@gmail.com. Now, back to this week's show.
Welcome back to Living Well with Ann Beal. I have Dr. Sharon Price here, and we were talking about many chronic illnesses that she works with as a nutritionist. And with her clinic, Life's Nutritional Directions. I almost told them my clinic. That's your clinic, Nutritional Directions in Southlake, Texas. And working with natural health science and just how to work with the gut to get it healthier, to get rid of a lot of these problems that people have. And so we're back, and you wanted to talk more about the body, and how God created the body.
Well, and I think that's one thing that has always fascinated me. I mean, even when I was in my 20s, I could tell that my body responded differently to the different kinds of foods or food artifacts at that time that I ate. And I mean, I was one of those people that had a headache every day of my life. And I just thought that's the way it was going to be. But you know what? I had a Diet Coke every day of my life,
every day
too. So, you know, how the body responds to food and how God has created our bodies to heal. I mean, it's like Ann said before. I mean, I'm not even allowed to use those words. Heal, treat, cure, diagnose. I can't use those words, and I don't need to use those words because it's whatever we give the body either creates illness or creates disease.
That's true, and I think that's very important, that you either get better or you get sicker.
Right. So God created the liver to function better with magnesium and B6 and B12 and folic acid and all of those things that are necessary to enable all of the pathways in the liver to function, to convert toxic waste to something that's not toxic, to be able to push it through the system. If the liver is overburdened, the kidneys are going to be overburdened. Now, what medical health care professional ever looked at somebody who had continual urinary tract infections and looked at the liver? You know, if the liver is overburdened, it's going to put an extra burden on the urinary tract. So we have to kind of look upstream, you know, what's going on upstream.
That's very interesting because, you know, a lot of my daughter, she had a lot of urinary tract infections back then. Mm-hmm. And the liver had been affected, that you had found out. There were things with the liver.
Well, and that's just it. You know, she said she had, you said she had copper toxicity. Well, I don't remember that, but,
right.
But yeah, and one way we determine that is through hair analysis. And it's not that she necessarily had toxicity in her body, it's toxicity in the liver.
Oh.
Because if she's copper toxic, she's zinc deficient. Because those two minerals are antagonistic towards each other. So getting that copper out of the liver so that the body can utilize that copper. So it's like the rest of the body is deficient in copper, but the liver is toxic. So anybody who is copper toxic is always zinc deficient.
So how do you feel about high cholesterol statin drugs that cause the liver to swell so it doesn't produce cholesterol?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question.
Because I'm sitting here hearing you talk about the liver, and I know they make it swell so it doesn't produce cholesterol. And Dr. Perlmutter in his book Grain Brain talks about how much he hates statin drugs because of what they do to the liver.
Yes, statin drugs are, you know, in the first place, they compromise coenzyme Q10, which is ubiquitous. It's throughout the entire body. It's one of the nutrients that help to get energy out of the cells. People who are on statin drugs almost always have muscle pain. And that's because statin drugs are making coenzyme Q10, which the body can produce on its own. It's making it inefficient. So,
it also doesn't let your body create cholesterol, which you need it for hormones and stuff like that too, right?
Definitely need cholesterol. Cholesterol, all of the hormones in the body proceed out of cholesterol.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and
a woman having messed up hormones is not a happy...
No. Neither are men who have low testosterone.
No, that's true. The testosterone wouldn't be able to be created.
Yes, right. And so, I mean, I rarely ever will do cholesterol testing in anybody. Number one, because if a patient comes to me, they've been to their physician, they've already had their cholesterol checked. If their cholesterol is even 250, I mean, if you look at the reference ranges for cholesterol 10 years ago,
right,
250 was fine.
It was fine, yes.
So we have to be a little bit careful about, you know, these drugs that we throw at the body generally, if you take one drug, there's another drug you have to take to counteract that particular drug. Anybody who comes in here on a statin drug, I will always put them on coenzyme Q10 if they don't want to get off of that drug. But
because they're scared, aren't they, that they'll get heart disease or heart attack?
Yes.
And yet there's no research to prove any of that, with high or low, that there's any difference.
Right. And individuals should also be checked for high sensitivity C-reactive protein, which is a cardiovascular risk indicator. Should be checked for homocysteine, which is a cardiovascular risk indicator. So rather than just checking cholesterol, you know, we have to check all of these other things. Magnesium and B6. Anybody who's on Prilosec or any of those acid-blocking drugs is almost always magnesium deficient and vitamin B12 deficient.
And that's what happened with Katie. I mean, she had been on Prevacid at second grade when she was spitting up. They started getting her Prevacid, and she was on it for 2 years before I brought her to you. And it made her so sick. And so now I never will take any of those anymore, knowing what they do. But it did. That's part of what made her. And that's when she eventually started throwing up. She just got sicker and sicker. And so I'm glad to hear you say that about those.
Oh, and that just breaks my heart when children come in here and they're on so many supposedly adult drugs that because the physicians don't know how to change their diet, how to recommend to change their diet. It's just very sad.
Because she was sad. I feel like, I ruined my children because I did let them drink soda when they were younger. And so many things I thought, if I had just known, you got her off soda. And that was one of the things that settled her stomach a lot because she was neutralizing her stomach acid with the soda. I didn't know, and the sugar, right? And corn syrup and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there were minor things that we could have done instead of putting her on the Prevacid, I found out later. Right. And so now I'm pretty freaked out about soda and stuff like that. I try not to preach too much about it.
Well, and when I started my business, I didn't intend to start a business, but it was all God. And there weren't a whole lot of people out there who know what a whole lot of people out there know today,
right?
Because of how far this industry has come, because of the health food stores because of people out there like me who want people. When I first started my business, I would get up at 6 o'clock and go to the Lions Club to speak. I mean, I would go anywhere to speak that people would have me because I had such a passion about what I had found, and I wanted everybody to know about it. So, you take today, for instance, when, the big buzzword now is gluten sensitivity.
You do hear it all the time.
I think that's important, though. But so what happens is these companies will get into the field and make all these foods that are gluten sensitive. But hello, how much sugar is in these gluten-free foods? Should have said
lots of sugar
foods. But you have to look at the ingredient list because some of these gluten-free foods can be loaded with sugar or corn syrup or, sucralose.
They've made them very tasty, haven't they?
Yes.
And that's where the danger comes in. As far as women, because I know you work with a lot of women who are hormonally imbalanced.
Right.
If you can think of just some basic things for these women to consider just in their diets, what are some of the things you can suggest?
For their diets?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, goodness. Well, I will usually provide a list of foods for those women to take out of their diets.
To take out.
Because a lot of women say, I have hot flashes all the time. And I find that is due to an imbalance of carbohydrate intake. So whether it's cookies, cakes, pies, donuts, or even, pasta and potatoes. And let's just say a diet that's out of balance with high carbohydrate, which turns into sugar in the body, which is, a sugar that sometimes the body can use, sometimes it can't. So that by itself can cause hot flashes.
And it's interesting that you say that, because I've seen 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds that'll be having hot flashes. And they'll assume it's their thyroid, and they'll go to the doctor, and they'll do the TSH
Right.
and something else. Anyway, T4 or something. And they'll say it's not their thyroid.
Right.
And so, but there's so many other things it could be.
There are so many other things. And, depending on the age of the woman and depending on the other symptomology that she presents with, we will test. Let's say a woman is 45 years old. I will always test the adrenals, because the adrenals are a backup for producing progesterone and estrogen and testosterone. So making sure a woman is not in adrenal burnout or adrenal fatigue, that is so important. But getting those sugars out of the diet, I just
Definitely.
can't.
So I've had even women come in with these testosterone implants that they do now, so that they get, and they're putting them in, I guess they last 3 months. And I've never, up until this past year, had women getting supplementation for testosterone. It seems like every client that comes in and I ask their medicine that they're on, they will all have, men and women will have testosterone supplements from their doctor, and they all were told they have low T. But I never used to get these people coming in with low T. So this must be a new thing that they're doing with men and women now.
Well, once again, it's buzzword marketing,
Yes.
low T offices, stores, whatever you want to call them, all over the place. And, while there are real true testosterone deficiencies, giving the body testosterone when it doesn't need it is very, very dangerous. It's just like going to the health food store and buying a bottle of melatonin is very dangerous unless you know you're melatonin deficient. So while there are real true testosterone deficiencies, a man who is taking testosterone and is not taking something like diindolylmethane or something that will prevent testosterone from converting to estrogen in his body, is setting himself up for prostate cancer.
Well, see, and that's what I was wondering, because everyone cannot be deficient in testosterone. And even if they're giving just a supplement for it like that, when they come off, it's just going to go back down, because they're not teaching the body, they're not figuring out why the body isn't creating it. Why is it low?
Right.
And so it is interesting to know it's dangerous, because it doesn't, what they're trying, I get a range of people saying, the guys will say, I need more energy. Or, some of them it's performance sexually, but a lot of them it'll just be energy or weight gain. And so they'll be on testosterone supplements. And I haven't found a single person that gets the results from that testosterone supplementation that the doctor said could happen. And so it's almost like chasing a dream the wrong way.
Right. Well, Anne, you mentioned earlier pituitary gland, and the hypothalamus in the cranial cavity feeds the pituitary gland, and this is a hormonal signaling system, and the hypothalamus signals the pituitary, which signals the testes to produce testosterone. It signals the ovaries to produce estrogen, progesterone, signals the adrenals to produce all of those hormones, signals the thyroid. So you have your whole endocrine system that is being signaled by the hypothalamus and pituitary, and they respond back and say, okay, I got the message. So we have to see, where is that break? It could be in within the pituitary and the hypothalamus. So it's not just as simple as slapping on some testosterone. Where is that break coming? Why do I have that deficiency?
And the deficiency continues, doesn't it? If they're just getting supplementation for, if they're getting testosterone supplementation somehow, or shots. Some of them go get shots. Some of them get those inserts, what they call it, under their skin.
Those are so bad.
And I was just like,
so bad.
But it's still, whatever is really causing it is not being taken care of.
Right.
And that could be something pretty serious.
Exactly.
And so.
Yeah, I had a client the other day who's she's 16, and her mother had her on melatonin. And for a 16-year-old to be put on melatonin is not a good thing.
So was she thinking sleep, helping her with sleep, giving her melatonin? That happens a lot.
Right. But, what is the real reason she can't sleep? Because she has anxiety and stress all day long, that she can't sleep well because of her, peer pressure at school and bullying and on and on and on. It's all about getting to the root cause.
The root cause. Now, you have a book called Health and the Domino Effect. And this is exactly what it sounds like. Everything's dominoing because they're not finding the real reason that they're getting sick. They're just getting patches for the symptoms. And then everything just keeps dominoing.
Right.
Or what they're eating will domino. What's the idea of the book?
Well, the idea of the book is the domino effect. It's, setting up all these dominoes in a row and then, just hitting the first one and all of them fall down. Well, if you take, let's say one of those dominoes is B6, one of those dominoes is hydrochloric acid, one of those dominoes is, a hormone, whatever it happens to be, and you take that, pull that out of the stack. Well, everything is not going to happen like God designed the body to act, to react, to heal itself. The body is always wanting and needing to heal itself.
Which is really an important thing to know about your body. It wants to heal itself. It's just given the right things.
Exactly.
Because I know my daughter had holes in her intestines, and you had said the intestines will heal. Right. If you are gentle with them and you eat bland foods. I can't remember exactly, but her intestine healed. That's all I know. And so how can people reach you if they would like to either make appointments with you or talk with you? Do you do anything long distance?
I do. Actually, I have a clientele across the country, actually, who we do telephone consulting with. Most of my clients obviously are face-to-face. And I am in the Southlake, Texas area, and I can be reached. My website is nutritionaldirection.com, and my phone number is 817-283-4424. And once again, we can do telephone consults. I always like the individual to send me a picture so I know
who they are,
who I'm talking to. And
wonderful.
So
thank you so much for joining us today and informing us all about this.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on Living Well with Ann Beal. Hope to have you back next week. Take care.
Thank you again for joining us. Living Well with Ann Beal airs live every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Pacific Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. We can't wait to see you again next week.
Thanks again for listening to the preceding program brought to you on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericaempowerment.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the preceding program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.